Hi, Chris Fletcher here. Before we get this mini-episode started, I just wanted to make a few quick Ostium-related announcements. The first episode of Season 2 will be available January 14th, 2018, and hopefully available for our Patreon patrons sometime earlier in December. So if you want to get that Season 2 premiere early, consider becoming a patron. Our Ostium store is now up and running on Redbubble. You can go to redbubble.com and type Ostium Podcast in the search bar, or follow a link on our website, ostiumpodcast.com. The first book of Ostium is now available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. It is all 10 episodes from Season 1, as well as the mini-episodes, plus a few bonus mini-episodes. It also features all the artwork by our brilliant artist, Sarah Warren, including the covers to each episode, illustrations, as well as some bonus sketches. The ebook is available free to our patrons at the $5 level. If you haven't already, please consider giving us a review on whichever podcast app you use to listen to Ostium. We really appreciate it. And if you feel like you still need more Ostium in your life, you might consider joining our Patreon for as little as $2 a month, and you'll get a new mini-episode every 2 weeks, plus access to the mini-episodes and other bonus materials already available on our Patreon. And finally, if any of you will be attending the PodCon in Seattle on December 9th and 10th, our very own Georgia McKenzie, the voice of Monica, will be attending and maybe bringing some Ostium goodies with her. So if you'd like to meet her and say hi, and possibly pledge your undying devotion to the show, shoot us an email at ostiumpodcast@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Alex C. Talander, creator and writer for the Ostium Podcast, and welcome to a 4-part series called 10 Questions, where each member of Team Ostium gets to ask and answer the same 10 interview questions. First up, we have Chris Fletcher, voice of our hero, Jake Fisher, and the composer behind the music of Ostium.
So how did you first get involved with Ostium?
I first met Alex in the early 2000s. He and I were both working at a Borders bookstore when they were still around. And at the time, I was actually doing a podcast myself called The Late Late Show. It was a original horror anthology show, came out once a week. And I would read people's short stories that they had submitted. And so Alex got involved with that. He did a story which I read. And so I'm sure I must have been in his mind when he was thinking about putting together this podcast. So I was excited from the beginning to get involved with this.
What's your role with the Ostium Podcast?
Well, of course, I provide the voice of Jake, but I also write the original music for the show. I'm looking forward to discussing that at a little bit more length in a future mini-episode, so stay tuned for that.
What do you like most about what you do for the podcast?
I actually really like both of my roles on the show. I've always enjoyed reading and reading out loud. I'm a school teacher, and that's always been one of the most satisfying parts of the job, is getting students who otherwise might not pay attention to be quiet and listen when you start telling the story. Music's always been a love for me. It's really a hobby, but something that I get a lot of satisfaction in spending time with, and so this gives me an excuse to play music.
Is there anything you don't like about it?
No, I'm good.
What kind of equipment do you use?
I use an old microphone that I think I probably stole from the Borders open mic that I used to host. It's a handheld Audio-Technica AT-M61HE. I don't believe it's made anymore, but I have one. So you'll have to go through an Ostium door to the Audio-Technica factory and get one there. I use my iMac to record the audio in Logic Pro. I'm looking forward to using some new orchestral sample software for season 2. It's from a company in England called Spitfire Audio, which is really fantastic. I'm blown away by how good it is.
Would you like to be doing something more with the podcast?
Well, I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing. I've always liked the idea of making movies, so if we branched off into movie making, that might be cool.
What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I love to read. I love music, writing it, listening to it, coming up with songs. I have always really liked languages, so I've been playing around with the Duolingo app, trying to learn Russian very, very slowly. But I enjoy that. I like being part of anything creative, especially with other people. So being on Team Ostium has been a lot of fun.
Other than Ostium, what would you say is your favorite podcast?
I haven't actually been listening to many podcasts recently. I listened to a lot of them back about 10, 12 years ago, back toward the beginning of the whole podcast thing. I remember listening to a show called Word Nerds that I liked a lot. It was these two guys from Virginia. I'm not sure if that show is still around. I created a podcast called The Late Late Show for about a year and a half, from 2005, 2006, I think. And I liked to listen to a bunch of those old radio shows. There was one from the early 80s I remember particularly liking called Nightfall. It's really creepy and cool. So you should check some of those out if they're still around. Probably not.
If you could go through any door in Ostium, when would you like to go?
I think I would go back to Vienna in the beginning of the 19th century to watch the premiere of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. He was deaf at that point and wasn't able to conduct, but supposedly was on stage facing the orchestra. And then at the end, someone had to turn him around so he could see the reaction of the audience. And when he realized how affected they were, he cried. And so I think that'd be cool to see Beethoven's tears.
What do you think is going to go on in Season 2 of Ostium?
Well, I think Season 2 is going to be phenomenal fun, and people will just need to make sure they are subscribed to find out just how much fun that's going to be.